Okay, we're now live on YouTube. So whenever you want to get started.
Okay, great. So we're here to do a create on crafting and doing some mason jar crafts tonight.
Okay, we're now live on YouTube.
Oh, I hear the echo of it.
You want to get started. Oh,
Okay,
hold on.
Great. So we're here to do a create on crafting and doing some mason jar crafts tonight.
Okay, we're now live on YouTube.
Oh, I hear the echo of it.
You want to get started. How about now? Is it better?
We're good?
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So we're going to go first through 4 different ideas that we have, 4 different techniques for crafting with mason jars. And then depending on what materials you have at home, you might be able to do all 4 or maybe not, and that's fine. So this way I'll show all 4 and then you can just pick and choose, like, I like that one, I don't like that one, and we can go from there. The first thing is having some glue. So I had mentioned either white glue or Mod Podge. And really quickly, I'll let you know, I didn't have Mod Podge, but I made my own. And it's simply half white glue and half water. It's been sitting in this jar for like a week, and so it's separated. But if you were to squeeze some glue in and put some water in, then you can just shake it up and you have Mod Podge. Or if you had like a little bowl, you can squeeze the glue in and then pour some water in and mix it up. And so you're just kind of thinning out your glue to make your own Mod Podge. Because we're going to use that, this like watered down glue for 2 of our techniques. If you can get the jar open, it would be good too. Okay.
These are scented.
So the first one we're going to go over is a jar decorated with comics. It's decoupaged with strips of comic book paper from a comic book, or if you don't have that and you have like wrapping paper or printouts from the computer, you could do that. I pre-cut some, but basically you would want to like sort of measure how big your jar was. So it's only this big. And then using your scissor, cut some strips, which you probably can't see way down here. But you would just cut strips of paper about 1/2 inch wide that would fit the height of your jar. And then once you have a couple of them cut, you can paint inside your jar with the Mod Podge and take a strip and place it in there. You can put in there with your finger, and then you take some more glue and you glue on top of it. I'm going to see if I can show you like that. So that you're gluing on top of the strip, like wetting it through so that it sticks on the inside of the jar. And then you get your next strip. Sometimes they overlap and you don't want them to overlap too much. Just kind of, this one is a little bit messy because your fingers are in there with the glue. I'll do one more and then I'll show you so you can get an idea of what's happening. And then I'm having to like press it in with my finger here to get it to form around that curve of the jar. But so far, we have a few strips in there so you can get an idea of what it's looking like. So that's our first method, using the comic strips. wish I had a napkin. The next method is much simpler, using some colored Sharpies. You make a stained glass jar, and this jar had a texture on it, so I just kind of followed the pattern with the colors. But if you had like just a plain jar, you're just gonna lay down some blocks of color like they were pieces of stained glass. You're just gonna go and make, just like a series of straight lines. Rather than scribbling back and forth, you just kind of want to put your lines next to each other, because they do a funny little thing if they overlap. Ooh, I like this one. I don't know if you can hear that. I hear it's making that nice squeaking noise that a marker makes. And then the nice thing about a stained glass jar, since you're putting your decoration on the outside, you could put something on the inside. You could fill it with water and put flowers in it, or you could get a little tea light and have a little candle in your jar, and it would look pretty with the stained glass effect. So that is our second method. The next one I really like. This one looks like sand glass, like the pieces of glass that you find on the beach. And this is really easy to do. This is why I have this separate little cup. It uses Elmer's glue. And like 1 or 2 drops of food coloring, and you only need 1 color. I don't know if you can see that. And then maybe I'm going to use this other brush. It doesn't matter what kind of brush you have. This is just what I had at home, but it looks very blue, and you just mix it around. And when it dries, it's not quite as dark. So I don't know whether to go up or down, but you're just going to paint it on in sort of even strokes from the top down or the bottom up. Just try and keeping it even and not too much overlapping. And it doesn't look at all like stained glass now. It looks like wet paint on a jar, but by tomorrow it'll look like this. So I think that one's kind of cool. And that one also, because you're doing the painting on the outside, you could then put something inside of it, like make it into a vase or a tea light or something. And then the last one I have is a yarn wrapped jar. And this one goes back and uses the Mod Podge again. And this one is a little messy too. And you can use, like here, I have just 2 different colors because it's basically just what I had at home. But it would be pretty if you had like, you could do an ombre effect. If you had like a dark blue, a medium blue, a light blue, and white. That's what they call an ombre effect. Or you could do, if you had like rainbow yarn, you could do it with rainbow yarn. You could do anything. It would be really pretty. So I'm gonna unroll some here. And this one, you're going to use the Mod Podge again and paint it around your jar. And you start up and kind of hold the end with your thumb and wrap it around so that it's, you're not overlapping, you're just continuing down the jar with the yarn. And when you have a couple of rows done, you can hold on to it. And we want to seal it in place now. So we're using the Mod Podge again and going over top of it. This one really does take a long time to dry because you end up with all this yarn covering the jar, and it's basically all wet with the glue. And then you just keep going, keep wrapping. Mine are going to be white and blue because that's all I have at home now. But they'll match. We'll be okay. So I'm pretty much done showing you guys these 4 different techniques, and I hope that you get a good idea of it. And then if everyone is ready to start crafting along, you can share your video if you want. And if you have questions, feel free to ask me questions. I'll help however I can to answer them. And I hope we all have a good time tonight.